Hello class, Professor Moptop here. Welcome to another weekly update. This week is a super duper fun one because you're going to be getting 4 hunks of audio from the Revolver album. The Revolver album is remarkably interesting. This is when the Beatles are really becoming excellent in the studio. They were getting good, they were getting better, they were really great. By the time Revolver came around, they just started thinking in a different turn, different type of way. The 4 songs you're going to be getting are 2 McCartney songs and 2 Lennon songs. Very, very different type of songs. These are very far away and very far removed from She Loves You. The first one is She Said, She Said. This is a more creative era for the Beatles as they started to take inspiration from things that weren't just old rock songs or romantic relationships. They were getting beyond love songs. They were looking for inspiration anywhere. While they were touring in 1965, they rented a house in Hollywood Hills owned by Zsa Zsa Gabor. They hung out with the Byrds, they hung out with Joan Baez, and they hung out with some unknown women who may or may not have been playmates. At any rate, while they were hanging out there, Peter Fonda somehow got into the party, and everyone was taking LSD together, except for Paul McCartney, and they were having a lot of fun, and they were really enjoying the experience. And Peter Fonda was getting on John Lennon's nerves. You'll hear all about it as he described a story of how he felt dead and he knew what it was like to feel dead. And John Lennon actually got Peter Fonda kicked out of the party. How horrible is it for Peter Fonda to be a foot-known to Beatles song but wind up getting kicked out of a party which involved the Beatles, the Byrds, and acid? That's kind of lame. Anyway, John Lennon made a demo for the song He Said, He Said. He worked on it a little bit. He also had a chunk of a song which was the When I Was a Boy part, and it was George Harrison who suggested that they put the two together and make it one song. Paul McCartney may not be on this at all. He might not have actually liked the song. On June 21st of 1966, which was at the end of the sessions for Revolver, Paul McCartney left early. As legend goes, he may or may not have gotten into a car accident and died that night and replaced by another guy, which is why he doesn't play on the track. He might have been uninterested in the track. He might have not felt good. He might have just went home early once. There's not a single song on Revolver. There's not a single Beatle on Revolver that is on each and every song. There's at least one song where all of them aren't on for whatever reason or another. She Said, She Said is considered the beginning of the Beatles and their acid period. The second song you're going to hear about is Good Day Sunshine. Paul McCartney thought that Revolver was a little bit too dark. There were songs about death, there were songs about birds, there were songs about loneliness, and he wanted to up the mood a little bit, as Paul McCartney so wonderfully does. He took the song Good Day Sunshine and he said he wrote it on a day where there was a lot of sunshine. He says the same thing about Here, There, and Everywhere. They might have been written on the same day. Paul might just be remembering things differently. But at any rate, the song Daydream by the Lovin' Spoonful was the original inspiration for Good Day Sunshine. Paul McCartney once again using the attitude that if they can do it, we can do it too. Even though it's sort of a simple lyric, it's not very detailed about the love relationship within the song. It's kind of a complex recording, and for whatever reason, John Lennon doesn't play on it. He does sing on it, but it's George Harrison playing bass on the record. They also have 2 drum tracks, as well as 2 pianos, which is kind of unusual, and on top of all that, George Martin playing another piano solo. So it's a very interesting song, even though it's considered on some lists as one of the more unpopular Beatles songs, which I personally don't understand. Also something to look for, or listen as it were, when Paul sings She Feels Good, you can quietly hear John saying She Feels Good. Listen to it. You'll never hear it the same again. Third song is another Lennon song, And Your Bird Can Sing. This is John really getting into his weird and unusual period. It's very Dylan-esque. He uses the phrase don't get me, which could mean you don't understand me, or it could mean you won't possess me. There's all kinds of lyrical questions that John poses in his songs. McCartney might have helped a little bit. There's a cool bit of audio that you'll hear where the Beatles are recording and they get what is known as the giggles. It's very, very funny. They started recording in many different ways during Revolver, not just recording a rhythm track and then adding overdubs. Sometimes they would record the piano instead of the bass and Paul would overdub the bass. Sometimes they would wait for the guitars. Sometimes they would record the guitars with the vocals. and almost always they were affecting the tape in one way or another. They didn't do this every time until Sgt. Pepper. Just about everything on Sgt. Pepper is affected by speed in some way or another. And the fourth song you're going to hear about this week is For No One, which is Paul McCartney in a very, very dark song. It's about a breakup. It's a very mature theme. There's some classical elements to the song, and it's just Paul and Ringo playing. They recorded the piano and the drums, and then Paul overdubbed his bass, and Ringo added some slight drums to it. It's a very, very simple song, or at least a simple recording. Paul's voice is single-tracked. Once again, the Beatles never used the tricks that they had each and every time. They knew when to use them and when not to use them. When they recorded it, they left an open space for a solo. Paul suggested a French horn because he thought it was a sad-sounding musical instrument, and George Martin, who knew each and every musician in the planet, apparently, in the 1960s, took a guy named Alan Civil. He said, why don't you come over and play on this Beatle record? They worked together, and that is the French horn solo that you hear on For No One. And that is the 4 songs you are going to get in your WeTransfer emails. Thank you, as always, for being part of the Patreon experience. It's supposed to be a couple of dark, cloudy, gloomy days, which are my favorite days in the entire universe, and I'm going to stay holed up inside typing and listening to music and writing and editing and fixing all kinds of mistakes and errors in Volume 3 of Textbook Beatles. Thank you so much. You have a wonderful week.